Good afternoon and welcome to Representation Matters on Teacher Hug Radio at teacherhug.co.uk, the soundtrack to your teaching career. I'm Laura McConnell and today I'm speaking to Shabnam Anam. Good afternoon, Shabnam.
Afternoon. How are you?
I'm great. How are you? Thank you for joining.
Not at all, not at all. It's lovely.
So Shabnam, you have had a very wide and varied career in education. You've been everything from, class teacher all the way up to head teacher and now university lecturer. Can you tell us a little bit more about your education background and how you got into education and teaching in the first place?
Yeah, sure. Well, it wasn't as if teaching was the career that I really sort of chose. When you're at school and they say, what do you want to be? And I actually always wanted to be a graphic designer. So that was, I had these dreams of going to New York and living in an apartment, and being really cool and trendy. But it didn't sort of materialize. And I left school. I left school at 16, went to college and did about a year of A-levels. We're talking a long time ago, so we're talking about O-levels and A-levels, back in the 80s, before GCSEs. So I did that, and then I fell pregnant with my eldest son, and so I left education altogether. And I went through this right on phase of the country owes me a living and all of this kind of thing. So I didn't pursue education any further at that point. And I worked for NatWest. I worked for the benefit agency. I'll say that really quietly, but I was one of the nice guys. Everybody used to come to me because I would be really helpful, and I'd be like, "Oh my God, that's terrible! You're in this let me sort it out for you." And it wasn't until my daughter came along, and she was in nursery school, and I kind of was helping out. Was doing a bit of TA stuff, and the head there. I kind of said, I might fancy doing a nursery nurse course then, because this is, I'm quite enjoying doing this with the sort of little ones. And she was the one who said, no, you need to do a teaching degree, not just, not a nursery nurse. You'd be wasting that. You've got so much to give here. So that's what I went and did. So I went as a mature student, and I studied at Sunderland University. Was absolutely brilliant. The course was amazing. It was basically a PGCE with a year stuck onto it. But that year, we studied everything with students from those disciplines. So, we did phonics with linguistic students, which was amazing, absolutely fantastic. It gave us a real grounding in theory as well as that we could then put into practice. So I qualified, when was it? 1998, and I started teaching. So I'm from the northeast, so that's where I'm from. And I started teaching in a little sort of ex-pit village, because all pit villages had gone by that time, school, and loved it. Got kind of involved with special needs because of the kids who were in my class, really. That was it. You kind of, back then as an NQT, you didn't have all of the stuff that that we give NQTs now, and you just had to do it yourself and find out, go and research. So I got interested in that, and then applied for a Senko role in my second year of teaching, because we needed the money. It was, I'm going to be honest here, that was what it was about. And I got it. And I was absolutely gobsmacked. But I applied common sense and this idea of, on my Twitter profile, it says, champion of underdogs. And that's exactly what it was about. It was kind of, well, I don't understand how other teachers, don't want to do their best for these kids, and this is how we would do it. So I got that job, which was phenomenal. It was in a big primary school in Sunderland with a 20-place deaf provision for deaf children. So they came into mainstream lessons as well, so they had lessons in the unit, kind of either sort of pre-learning vocabulary, all of that kind of stuff, and then they were in with mainstream kids. So it was brilliant. We used to wear those headsets, so and it was around about the Britney Spears time, so we all used to pretend to dance about like Britney Spears, and it was a fascinating place, right in the middle. It was the third most deprived ward in the country at the time. So and I loved it. It was a great school, and loved the role of Senko. So because I was involved in the unit, which was something I'd never come across before. I did a bit of sign language because of that, and I just got to know the system at the time. And while I was there, so that it was then that back then you didn't have to do the Senko Award. It wasn't a necessity in England then. But my head at the time was really supportive, and she said, it would be good for you to do this course. And basically, it was like 60 credits of an MA. And that's when I started becoming interested in autism, and that's what I focused on, because it fascinated me at the time. I mean, this is I didn't have any prior sort of knowledge of autism, and I say now to my inclusion students that things have changed so much since then. The kind of research that's gone on since has upturned a lot of the things that we were being told back then, in the early 90s about, in the late 90s about what autism was, how to, strategies. Some of them, of course, are still there, but a lot of it has changed. And it was about kind of, boys and autism. That was sort of how it was. So I was Senko there. I then became assistant head. Did all the usual sort of taking year 6 all the time, and I wanted to go into leadership because I felt that, I don't know, I saw it as a way of being able to change things from within. It wasn't this, oh, I want to be a leader, I want to be a head. It was the frustration, I think, with, frustration with bureaucracy and what was going on. And I kind of thought that, if I had my own school, I'd be able to, we'd be able to do it the way we think it's, the way we think is right. So I kind of spent a couple of years sort of going for deputy headships. And then eventually got one in Newcastle in a school that was in special measures, which was the steepest learning curve I had, but it prepared me for headship, absolutely. I spent a year with a fabulous head teacher who basically gave me the reins, and it was an apprenticeship. It was absolutely an apprenticeship. I mean, I'd done the MPQH, the headship qualification, but I didn't really feel it gave me anything. Whereas this year in a school like that, it was fantastic. And I then met my partner, who was from over the other side of the country on the West Coast. And it was a case of, right, who's going to do the moving, me or you? And it was whoever gets a job first. And I saw it as an opportunity to actually go for headship, which I don't know whether that was just naive or stupid or what, I don't really know. But started looking for headships and applied to this little village school. I mean, now I think back on it, it was absolutely crazy. I knew nothing about the Northwest, nothing about villages. I'd worked in inner city schools, urban schools. Went for this job and got it. And it was one of those moments where you go and you think, yay, I got the job. And then you sit there in your car and you think, right, what the hell have I done? Do I really want to do this? How do I do it? And that was the biggest question. It's like, what do I actually do? But I loved it. It was very challenging, even though it was a little village school. We're not talking about, your little church school. It was like a micro version of schools in towns. So instead of having, you just had smaller numbers of everything that you would have in a town school. I was there for 10 years as head. So it was great. It was there that I did a lot of, we did a lot of innovative stuff in that time, all around putting the child at the centre and stripping away all of the stuff that you just think gets in the way of teaching and learning and making learning a really good experience for children. To the extent that we had people coming from other schools, and they'd come in and they'd say, am I dreaming? Is this, how are you doing this? And we'd sort of change, we'd taken the curriculum and we'd abandoned all subjects as subjects. So our kids, they led the curriculum, they decided what it was that they were learning. It was all very individualised because it was a small school. We had mixed age classes. So at one point we had the class was year 3 to year 6 mixed. And we run it, as I say, with a lot of individual learning. It was all project based, and it was great. And we really loved doing it that way. And the kids came out with such just confidence. They're talking at the minute about catch up and all of this in terms of academic catch up. That's content. If you don't lay those foundations of being happy and being confident in who you are, having that self-confidence and that awareness, you may as well not bother, because you ground kids with that, how to learn, why they want to learn. You can give them any content you like and they'll pick it up, they'll go with it and they'll be successful. So it's a little bit disheartening listening to all this extra hours, even though they're saying it's it's going to be PE and creative arts. My sort of response to that is, why is PE and creative arts not important in the main school day then? Why do you need to tag it on the end? So that was my kind of school journey, work in schools, and I left headship. I left it in a difficult way. It had become a fight, I think. Again, a fight of, there was a conflict of philosophy. And I can remember saying to one of my governors partway through my headship, and I said, if the time comes where I'm having to play 2 games, where I'm having to play games because what the authority wants, what the government want, is not what I think is right for children, I'll leave headship. And she said, oh, that'll not happen, but unfortunately that is how it went. I just found myself having to implement things because they were coming from above, and just having this conflict of moral. It was a moral conflict. I just thought, I can't do this. I can't make my staff do things that I know are not, are not right. They know it's not right, and we're just being made to do it. So, yeah, I kind of, then I left, so I left headship. And I had a bit of time out. I homeschooled my youngest for 6 months, which was an amazing journey. You know, we're not talking about remote learning now. We're talking about full on homeschool. You know, we de-schooled. We did all of that and learnt through whatever we were doing, stuff in the garden, we went to museums, we went for walks, we did it all in such a wonderful way. And I will be forever grateful, really, that even though I left my headship under a bit of a cloud, and I had a period of quite sort of, a comprehensive sort of depression and anxiety. Out of that, I had this time with my son that I'm just, internally grateful for, because it really did make me think about education and what schools should be offering children, and what was right. And it kind of affirmed my beliefs, I could see it in how he was progressing. And then he's at a Steiner school. So I kind of, I've had this weird sort of, mainstream and then homeschooling, and then I got involved with the school. So I'm a trustee there. And Steiner Waldorf, yes, it has its faults. And yes, if you're talking about the man, there are many, many things that are not right. But the movement itself puts the children at the at the center, and it's all about taking your time. There's no formal learning till 7, and it's and I will be talking later on about sort of his autism and his neurodiversity, and it was partly that made us think, no, we're not going to put him back into mainstream after homeschooling, because he's very able. And I could just see what was going to happen. He'd be, he's going to be greater than expected, so we'll get him to do more of this and more of that. And actually, he'd have just rebelled against it, and then he would have become a problem because of his behaviour. Whereas now, yes, he's really able, but they're not pushing him for that academic, attainment. What they're doing is they're supporting him as a child to be a child, and enjoy his childhood, use his childhood as a springboard for learning. And that's really sort of, it's influenced how I feel about education, full stop. And so now I'm kind of almost coming full circle, because I'm now taking it back to students, and giving them the benefit of the years of experience that I've had, and teaching teachers of generations to come, kind of thing. It's that leverage of experience. How could I best leverage that experience? I used to think it was headship, and when I got to headship, I realised that wasn't necessarily the case. You could have some influence, but I kind of thought, right, okay, how can I increase that? Well, the best way to do that is to train teachers who are then going to go and teach, class of 30, each one of them, with those lessons that really matter. So I've only just started that, but we've already had some very interesting discussions about curriculum, about decolonizing the curriculum, about inclusion, and I kind of feel like it's I've come home almost. It feels like the right place, and certainly it kind of matches my values. So yeah, definitely. So yeah, it's a new job, but it's very different teaching in HE compared to teaching in schools. I mean, as a teacher, I mean, even as a head, I was a teaching head, so it was always there. I couldn't sort of step away from the classroom. The difficulty was kind of, what's going to be more important, the headship side or the classroom teaching side. That was always a pull, because I'm a bit of a perfectionist. So, it has to be right. But that used to trouble me. It was like kind of not being able to give enough time to the classroom. So this role is quite different. I'm enjoying having that conversation with young teachers who are going to go out there and they have I can see sort of how I was, back then, in a lot of them. There's quite a few of them are very intense. They're doing their research. And they've got all those questions that they want to ask. And they see as well. For them at the minute, it's very difficult because they're doing all of this, quite a lot of them remotely. So they've got the pandemic to sort of consider as well, and they've not had the experience of being out in schools in the way that they would like to. You can't just sort of send them off to go and have a chat with somebody in school about, go and have a chat with a Senko, go and see this practice, go and see that practice. So I do feel for them. I think it's a tough one. But they're really resilient. They're doing very, very well, and they're an absolute delight to, they've kind of rekindled that love of teaching and learning that, so it's great. It's always good to renew, I think, it's like, change up. Change is good. And you're never kind of too old or it's never too late to do something completely new. I turned 50, see, last year, and it was oh, right, okay, well, what am I going to do? Do I start something new? But it's been great. And I'm also doing an MA myself, so it's good to know what it's like as a student as well as sort of teaching them. And who knows where to next? Who knows?
Thank you very much, Shabnam. You're listening to Teacher Hug Radio on teacherhug.co.uk.